What's up? What's up? I'm Jim Collins, owner of Collins Entertainment, DJ entertainment company based out of Connecticut, and singer-songwriter under Jim Collins Music. This is the very first episode of Collins Conversations, and I'm kicking it off with none other than Mark Everton Gray. Mark, what's good, brother?
Jim, how are you, man? Thanks for having me as your first here. I really appreciate it, brother.
Let's jump in, man. You've worked with Imagine Dragons, The Killers, Santana, Sean Chambers, Celine Dion, Elton John, Maroon 5, Donny Osmond, the Blue Man Group, so many more. So I guess starting off, what project stands out the most to you personally and why?
Oh, it's like asking somebody like, well, which one's their favorite kid? Man, I there are a bunch that stand out to me, and I think it's all different projects over different points of my career. When I started at Quad Recording Studios, it would probably be the stuff that I did with Kevin Shirley. Like that's when, for people who don't know who Kevin Shirley is, he's amazing producer, engineer, did all the Iron Maiden records, Joe Bonamassa, Led Zeppelin, How the West Was Won, Rush counterparts, Jimmy Page and the Black Crowes, and I mean I'm coming up short on names, but I started assisting with Kevin back, I think it was 2004, maybe right when the Hit Factory closed. He came to Quad Studios, and just really learning how a rock producer and engineer of that magnitude, especially him coming off of doing Led Zeppelin, How the West Was Won, like what his workflow was on the console. I mean, we had millions of racks of gear behind us, plus the studio gear, and we were on an SSL J9000 XL. And just learning how he mixes records. And, this is back in the day when it was all analog gear. And yes, we were using Pro Tools, but I mean, I'd have 100-page recall packets and just like, for every song. And if you had one wrong note of like where you miswrote whatever the patch point was, you'd be in trouble. It's not today where you just turn on the computer, you hit the icon of your session, and everything just pops up. So working with Kevin it's what started me on the path to where I am now, is working with Kevin.
Right. So I can imagine too, especially assuming your role and working alongside him, just the amount of pressure that there was back then because of the analog, right? And just being able to keep all hands on the pot of just what you're doing, multitasking must have been, I can imagine it was a much more complex, as you're mentioning.
Well, I mean, the pressures as we've gotten, as we've grown from like transferred, I should say, from analog to digital world, but still we're, a lot of us are very much in the analog world. I think the pressure is just mounting even more and more because the budgets are less and everybody wants it, done yesterday. And, with digital technology, it's that perceived instant gratification that you have to appease. It's just working in that analog realm was my foundation. And with tape, with the patch points, rolling in all the gear, and really being hands-on with the console. It's definitely made me the engineer that I am today.
So what's one unexpected or funny moment you've had while working with a big name artist?
What can I talk about? That's the question.
Yeah. Right. What can you share? What can you?
I'll say that. So started out Quad. So Alicia Keys, I was a second assistant to Ann Mancilli and Stuart White, who are big time master engineers. You can see them mixed with the masters, and Ann brought me in on the session, and I was just going and getting coffee. They were, Ann would say to me, she's like, you can't be in the room because they like to do a lot of chanting and like Gregorian monk stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know. And then by the end of the session, it was I walked in bringing everything in, and it was like, and Alicia yells out, close the door, Mark. We got to start our chanting. I was like, oh, okay. And then you hear laughter. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, guys. It's just like, just a naive second assistant. And, and they recognized the hard work and had some fun with me. And it was cool. They were just fucking with me, dude.
Oh, okay. All right.
Totally. It was just like, let's have fun
That's
with
funny.
you, guy.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
That's hysterical.
Totally.
Holy.
It was like, your kid's green. Let's see what he's made of. Like, yeah. And, and it's, and when you're working with artists at that caliber and the sessions are, there's a lot of stress to it. You better be on point. And, when you're not everybody gets to be in the room, and you have to earn your stripes just to get in the room.
Sean Chambers is the one I'd like to ask about next. And I know he's mentioned he's going to tune in. How did you two first connect?
So a great friend of mine and mentor, the great Peter Moshe. He is Daryl Hall's engineer. He runs the Daryl's House Club. And, Peter's got, I think he's got four Grammys. And he does front of house for 100,000 people plus studio, and he does the front of house at the club, and he records the shows. And Pete and I met through the Clubhouse recording studio crew up in Rhinebeck, New York. And that was a long time ago. And when I moved back from Vegas to New Jersey, and started going up and doing a lot of stuff in Rhinebeck at the Clubhouse, Peter and I just became better friends, and then just grew into kind of like him being a mentoring relationship. So Peter gave me a call and said, hey, do you want to mix this record? It's a live record. The guy's name's Sean Chambers, and he's got the Savoy Brown rhythm section behind him. I said, sure, man. And he sent me the files. And Peter's recordings are impeccable. I mean, if something's wrong, it's your fault afterwards in the mix. So, and I was nervous, man. It's just like the first time he gave me a big project. It's coming from Daryl's House Club, and as soon as I listened to Peter's, blown away by the band. Just absolutely, it was like, who is this guy? I never had heard of him before. And, I picked up the phone and just like the nicest guy. Just, hey, Mark, how you doing? I'm Sean. He's like, I'm really excited to work with you. Like, you come highly recommended from Peter. And, it just bloomed into a great friendship and a great working relationship. And, they recorded it last spring. And I started mixing it in October of last year. And I think they did 27 songs for the show, for the set list, which is wild.
Okay.
And we condensed it down. I forget how many are on. I think there are 14 maybe or 15 that are on that made it to the final cut. And that was the only editing, was just figuring out what songs he wanted in the running order. And then with a live record, once you get one, you've got everything else. Yeah, I had some new gear. I had a custom-made summing mixer on it, and then I had these new clear compressors, Verspeak Hirsch clear compressors, which are made by Chip Verspeak, and in design with Henry Hirsch. Henry was Lenny Kravitz's engineer and did all the Lenny Kravitz records, and very analog-minded engineer. And they just came up with some great gear. And my summing mixer was built Dave Anderson. And so I had new toys. And so I went all in, and I pushed it. And with these clear compressors, you can get 10 to 15 dB of clear gain reduction and compression. And I just let it rip. And the band just dictated the mood and the vibe. It's just, power trio, hard hitting, high energy, and it just three dudes on stage just ripping it. So
nice. Love that.
It came out great, and we're actually going to be submitting it for a consideration for Blues Contemporary Album of the Year nomination. So fingers crossed. We're in the middle of the submission process as the deadline is quickly approaching for the Grammys for this year, August 31st, I believe. And then as a voting member, we go through the whole voting process, which starts pretty much in September, all the way, I think, through like mid-November is when the second round of voting is done. And then I believe the nominees are announced in December for the Grammys, which are either before or after the Super Bowl. I'd have to look on that one for sure. But yeah, it's an exciting time with Sean, and he's out there now. He just did a whole Northeast tour, and then he's going to Europe for a little while in September. And hopefully one of these days I'll get to be in the studio with him, cutting his studio record with him. We'll see. Just like we hit it off, the music was speaking to me, and I didn't have to do anything crazy to it. I had to make it a modern classic, if you will. And I think we both spoke each other's language, as
awesome.
Because sometimes it's like when you're in the room, when you're with musicians, like, and the engineer, the producers not speaking the same language as the artist and the band and stuff like that, it could be a long day, a long session. And it wasn't like that. It was just, everything was just boom, boom, boom. Oh, you want that? We turn that down a little bit. Do that. Yeah,
man,
boom. It was
so makes life so much easier to work with someone like that.
Oh, God,
That's quite the contrast with others, I'm sure. But
oh yeah, it's just like if you spend. I like pre-production. It's like you have to have it. It's just like, especially today with ever shrinking budgets, you have to be prepared going into the studio. Studio time is expensive. Everybody's time is expensive, especially if you're going to a destination studio, or you got hotel rooms involved, backline involved, cartage. It's just like, it's still very expensive to make records when you're in a big commercial studio. And you can't be in there wasting time. It's not like the days of the $1 million budgets. I mean, I don't know how many people have $1 million record budgets anymore, and like I said, everybody wanted it done yesterday, and you got to move quick, and you need to prepare. When you sit down and you do pre-production, and you tell the band and the artist, like, hey, this is what I'm expecting of you. Make sure all your gear works. Make sure, if you need new drum heads, put new drum heads on it. You're going to need new strings. If your guitars need to be set up, your bass needs to be set up, set it up. It's just, you do your vocal exercises, treat your body like it's your instrument. Like, easier said than done, but yeah, you've got to be prepared going into the studio, because when you're not, it's just, Murphy's Law applies. Anything that can go wrong will. And I've recently been on sessions where, everyone's, oh yeah, we're coming in prepared. And then it's just, you're like, really? And then, then the mixing process takes forever.
Pre-planning is huge. So it's going to, I would imagine it's going to affect so much. If they don't take care of what it is in their pre-planning, as you're saying, it's going to affect the recording, and then it's going to account for wasted time that you're spending trying to fix a problem that could have been taken care of initially to begin with, if they just went the pre-planning, like you mentioned.
It's just like, it's like that trickle down, like it's that snowflake turning into a snowball, turning into an avalanche. And it can come and get you real quick. And it's, and there are always going to be studio gremlins, and there's always things that you're going to have to change, and you're going to have to call audibles and pivot and move like that. And the more that you're prepared, the better you are to be able to handle it. And it's, and when it doesn't happen, and there's chaos in the room, it's awful. You just want to run out of the studio, but you can't. You just got to sit there. You got to put your helmet on and just charge.
So tell me about a day in the life of Mark Everton Gray.
Well, I mean, so for right now, I am not at a commercial studio anymore. I'm freelance, so my schedule is a lot a lot looser these days. I'm not in the main commercial recording scene at the moment. And there's part of that I miss, and there's definitely parts that I don't. I don't miss the calls at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and having to go to the studio and like, hey, we need you there right now. And then you're like, you're hoping like, you're not getting a call when you're half in a bag. And I don't drink anymore. But there were times where I got called. Yeah, I lived in Vegas. And it was like, okay, I'm coming in. But you go in, it's like hurry up and wait. And then, then people don't show up for another 15 hours and you're just sitting there. I don't miss that. Even though you're getting paid for your time, it just, I can be doing stuff, that's, much more productive and intuitive to what I want. But now it's just like, I take on a certain amount of projects. I probably rotate between anywhere from 3 to 7 different projects going on at once.
Wow.
And it's just me. And I do have a buddy of mine, Richard Bellegarde, who's the guitar player for the Blue Man Group in the Vegas cast.
Yeah, sure.
And I give Richard, I send Richard a lot of like tuning work, and like, I'm not a vocal tuner. I never have been. I never will be. And I know where my limitations are and my weaknesses are. And I surround myself with people that are better than me in a lot of aspects.
That's so smart. That's so smart, Mark, to do that and, know your limitations. And I think
that's fun. Yeah. Exactly. And it's just like in any business or anything, it's just like, and especially in the recording industry, it is so competitive. And at Studio at the Palms, even though I was chief engineer, I'd be assisting a lot of teams that would come in. Like Celine had a team. When Dr. Dre and Eminem and 50 came in, they had a whole team. And and you're sitting there, you're liaising with them, you're managing the whole studio, the sessions, and everybody has their role. Like in these big sessions, like you have the guys that are recording, and then everything goes to an editor. And then while they're editing, you're recording new stuff. And then the edited stuff comes in. And then generally then somebody's in another studio cutting vocals while the guitar overdubs are going on. It's just like, it's a factory style mentality. And it's like, and there are a lot of people out there too that do everything on their own. They engineer, they produce, they do all the editing, they do all the tuning and everything like that. And like when you have those type of budgets and everything like that, cool. But even though like the little budgets, there are people out there who are doing everything, like and they're even mastering their own things. I don't master. It just, for me, if I have tracked, edited, and mixed the record, by the time I'm done mixing, I am done. I'm done.
Yeah. I'm going to, and I have a thought for that. And with the artists you're working with, I'm sure a lot of them you have like non-disclosure agreements. So you really can't talk about who you're working with until after the release, right?
Right, exactly. It's just like, and it's, studio etiquette and maintaining your client's confidentiality and what's going on in their world. You have to. And that's like, that was, burned in my head, before I even became a professional. I mean, my parents were, very successful in banking and venture capital. My mother was on that side for a while.
Okay.
And it's your client. If you don't take care of your clients and treat your clients with the utmost respect and honor and care, you're not gonna have any clients.
Right. Yeah.
But and in today's day and world, like I'm a hybrid mixer. So I have analog, I have the analog elements, like and my Pro Tools. My Pro Tools gets sent out to my 32 channel summing mixer. And then, I bring it back in, just stereo in, and I've got some analog pieces of gear that I run things through. It's more of like a set it and forget it for me, because, it's like when you're going between 4 or 5 different projects. I went through 4 yesterday doing recalls, and you can't just be sitting there like, back in the day where you're just sitting there tweaking the knobs and everything like that. I don't have an assistant. So it's just like, I use the gear more for color and the sound.
Okay.
And then I have them in their, like, so say my parallel compression for my drums, I use a Chandler TG1 and I use a pair of retro stay levels. Like they'll have those, the plugins coming up on their own aux channels and tracks. And then, but I'll have a whole bunch of EQs and like transient designers and gates and stuff like that, like manipulating the sound. So it's different for each project, but the initial signal is going through those analog pieces of gear and coming back. I just, I can't give up my analog gear just yet. I mean, there are people, and I used to mix completely in the box when I had $1 million console in front of me. But when I got out of the commercial recording space, I missed the large format console and the faders. There's nothing like it. It's just like, it's when you're not looking at the screen, it's totally different. It's just like, you're not using that extra sense to kind of trick your mind and fool your mind. So it's like, I still enjoy it. And I've got faders in front of me with my SSL fader packs and everything like that. But yeah, and I try not to look at the screen, but I'm guilty as the next person in doing so,
There's nothing like it too. I mean, I recorded vocals in when I was like 16 years old at this studio called New Alliance Studios in Boston, and there's nothing like it when I saw just a board, and how intimidating it was not knowing how to operate or use it or anything like that. So I jumped on that during the mix for the vocals, and the engineer was super cool, and he showed me how to work certain parts, and so I was adding effects to my vocals, dropping them in and doing a mix and everything. So that's how I started getting really intrigued with it and sound and everything, and falling in love with it, and the whole idea of going back and making it better, even better every time, so super cool stuff, man. So what's one part of your job that people would be surprised to learn about?
It's not as glamorous as you think. No. No. You could be sitting there listening to a little 4-second loop or 10-second loop on repeat for a couple minutes, or you could be listening to an 8-bar phrase for an hour. There's not like, it's like you see, like in the movies, these rockumentaries or these musical biopics, I guess is what they call them. Where they have those magic moments in the studio and it's all this crazy. A lot of it's not. It's just like going to work. And then, and it's which is to be expected. Not everything is people swinging from the chandeliers and carrying on like crazy stories like you hear, and like I've experienced this craziness and it's wild. But for the most part, it's like I said, it's hurry up and wait. And our running line was celebrity sitting. We're sitting around like babysitting celebrities and stuff like that. And it's true. You got to sit there and when you're dealing with extraordinarily famous people who have unlimited funds, time doesn't exist. So it's just like just get used to it. It's like, and it's even more so like in the movie business, like when you're on those sets and everything like that, it's like you're probably shooting for like an hour and it takes maybe 2 days just to set everything up and everything like that, so it's like same thing. It's
that's
not
insane.
It's not as glamorous as people think. That's that would be the big one.
So when you're listening to a mix, and this is why I'm thinking about this now, and you've gone over and you've listened to the same part over and over again. What can I do to make this sound better, or what's lacking here? What do we need to do? Do we need to extend this? So when you take the headphones off and you're like, look, I just want to have my time to do my thing, the things I'm interested in, whether it's music or not. Like, what are you listening to? What's on your Spotify playlist? Like, what's currently this week? Do you tell me the artist that you're currently listening to?
Oh, good question. Well, I'm going to see Oasis at the end of the month, so I've
cool.
rekindled at MetLife Stadium. I love that band, man. They are.
So you must be a Beatles fan then, if you like Oasis.
I do like the Beatles. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I don't listen to them nearly as much as I did, but yeah, I love the Beatles. Like they're the godfathers, pretty much, of modern recording techniques and studio techniques and
Oh
practices
yeah.
and everything like that. But Oasis,
Mm.
there's just that band's ridiculous to me. I love them. I'm listening to them.
Okay.
Like I'm listening to Kruder and Dorfmeister. I'm actually going to go see them. They're doing the Candid sessions with a full
Yep.
live band. They're German DJs for people who don't know. What I had Mozart on last night. John Coltrane, Miles Davis, Dave Brubeck, the Allman Brothers
Okay.
band. You know, I try to listen to as much new music as I possibly can. I have a whole list on my Spotify that I should know more names. I kind of knew this question was going to happen, but yeah, like Dirty Honey, like they're a great, like Southern rock. I would say like classic Southern rock band, amazing.
Okay.
Band Feel, I've been listening to.
I don't know that band. I haven't heard them. I can see this is helpful because it's giving me something to listen to as well, right? So
yeah, it's just stuff like that. I you know, it's I rotate like Massive Attack, Portishead.
Okay.
Like I'll rock the Tears for Fears radio on.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll do that. I like jam bands. Big Fish guy, love.
Okay.
Love Widespread Panic, Disco Biscuits, obviously the Dead.
Yep.
I try to I like 80s pop, 90s music. Love the 90s music. Yeah, I mean when you're done in the studio 18-hour doing after an 18-hour day, you're not listening to shit.
Yeah, right.
No, you're not listening to it's you're so fried. I do listen to a lot of talk radio too, sports talk radio.
Yep.
New Jersey 101.5, just like with the news and what's going on and everything like that. Yeah, and it's if somebody says, "Hey, check this out," I'll go check it out. It's I don't limit myself to what's out there, because even though there's a lot of garbage out there, and it's just like, and there's 150,000 songs a day being released on Spotify alone.
Oh yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, and it's hard to figure out who's out there and everything like that, because I mean, look at it. It's just there are no more A&R departments. There's no radio departments at record labels. Right now, currently, there hasn't been one artist that's had more than 1 week at the number one spot, on the top, in the number one spot, and in top 40, top 100, whatever on the charts. It's crazy.
That's frightening. So what is that saying about where music is headed?
Yeah, and and then with these algorithms, I feel like it's all starting to blend together. And and that's not a knock on artists, it's a knock on the industry itself. It's like, if you're in the top 2%, you're doing great. If you're in the rest of the 98%, it's terrifying right now.
So there's a lot of so I have your playlist actually. So I got the Mark Everton Gray playlist right here. You can't see that probably, but this is everything that I found out that you're involved in some way, shape, or form, and it's great, man. So and I think you have to you're talking about doing your research and listening to music a little bit and some of the new music that's coming out. Do you find that you have to do that anyways to kind of come up with new techniques or hear different things and then apply it to the work that you're doing?
Yeah, because it's like somebody calls you up and I want to sound like so-and-so. And you're like,
yeah,
oh yeah, sure. And you're like, ooh,
listen to this.
Yeah, and then you're on YouTube and you're like, oh, that's how they're doing it. Oh, okay. Right. It's just like, I mean, there's some phenomenal mix engineers out there and projects out there where people are doing all these crazy techniques and just that aren't your normal, just like signal flow techniques, of your fundamentals and stuff like that. They're using the fundamentals, but they're breaking boundaries and shattering the roof, of what technology can do. And that's the great thing about the digital world, is you can do all these crazy things that you couldn't do even like 5-10 years ago. It's just like with AI, coming into play in terms of like an AI being like, especially for restoration, like in reviving stuff that wouldn't have necessarily been able to do. Like, I mean, shit, the Beatles just got a Grammy with that new song that they came out of, because I think they were able to separate John Lennon's vocal with the
Yes,
piano.
they took the stems out and separated
Yeah,
them, and
exactly. And it's just like,
yep.
I just separated all of Sean's albums, like all of his tracks on his album, so they could, because they wants to do it for TV and film. So then, like, and for the people, they need to hear just the acapella and have the instrumental and then have the full mix. And it's like, I don't have the multi-tracks or anything like that. And his stuff spans since the 90s. And I'm sure some of it was done on ADATs, tape, Pro Tools, or whatever DAW they were using. But I could sit there with the stem separator and just literally have the drums on their own track, bass on their own track, guitar on their own track, vocals. And it's just like, it's scary. And
It's scary, man, and I think you could experiment a lot with it. And there's people that are just not musicians at all, and they use Suno AI, and it's a program, I think, out of Massachusetts. And all you need to do is just literally type in lyrics and type the vibe you're going for, and boom, and there's a song. It's a 2-minute song. It's like, what is happening? You know what I mean?
Right. And it's like, I get, and I get it for like a couple of my friends do that, like for they make gag songs and everything like that, like novelty songs and stuff like that. But it's starting to creep. Well, it is creeping into Spotify's playlists for these streaming companies, and it's terrifying. It's like now, and like all these artists are selling their catalogs, and these things are being fed into the algorithms and the machines, and it's just like they're literally trying to get rid of the middleman. And it's just like, I don't think engineers and producers and musicians will ever be obsolete. I mean,
I don't either.
The world of live entertainment, it's it's live.
You need the human element and working with somebody.
You gotta have it. It's like the T1000 can't do everything just yet. And
Right.
and it's what's the fun in that? Like you're gonna sit there and you're gonna type something in, and then you're gonna claim it yours. It's like,
right. How can you feel? How can you feel proud of that?
Right. That's how I think.
When people come back and they say, "I love this song. This is so great," you're like, "Thanks." I mean,
yeah, no, I don't know how you do it. Now, I'm in the midst of a project where we want to check out how AI can create background vocals that have already been sang, but we didn't have the budget to hire another, like a singer to come in, because we have 25 songs we're doing in this whole experimental music project I'm doing called Cinematica with my friend Michael Pope. And I was just like, just to give it some variation. It's like, well, I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole of seeing what it's like, to cast his vocals in a different timbre with and turning him to like female vocals with English accents. And like stuff like that, and just like adding these little flavors and stuff like that. I'm very interested to see what it's all about. Will I be using it every time? Probably not. There's nothing like having a real singer right in front of you that's phenomenal, and you can sit there and do what you need just like that. I think, and being in the room with somebody, and that's the thing too. It's like the sessions may start with everybody in the room, but it's not like where it used to be, where everybody was in the room from from downbeat 1 to the final fade of the last song of the mix.
That's interesting. Sure.
Because there's that human interaction. You can do it through Zoom, and I use audio movers. Audio movers saved my ass during the pandemic, where I give a link to a client, and we put the FaceTime up, and we're mixing in real time, and that's because there's nothing worse when you're getting mix notes via text or email, and you're trying to decipher what everybody. And also too, just talking to people and hearing the tone of their voice, and if they're pissed, if they're happy,
the inflections and
exactly.
Right?
And you're like, am I? I've had to in past me, like, are am I in the right path here? Oh yeah. And it's just it's you're yelling at your typewriter, and I think there's something to be said for everybody in the room and being creative and real-time interaction. I think it helps the music so much more instead of having to just all these little monotonous, oh, okay, I'm going to go, I'll fix this now. And then you're waiting for the guitar player to chime in, and then the drummer, and then the bass player, and then the singer, you know, and it's just
that's frustrating. That's
yeah,
just
it's
tedious.
well, I mean, but it's just the way it is.
Right?
It's just like, you know, it's not everybody together being like, you know, sussing it out because and moving along because you're just beating a song. Because then as the engineer or the producer, you're just beating a song to death at that point. And that's when it's like, then you have to be careful of losing your objectivity.
Yeah, and I think you can use it as your personal assistant and work with it that way, like a lot of what you're describing, and use it not as a replacement of necessarily, but just something as a tool you can use like anything else. When Google came out, you know, and everyone's like, whoa, this is crazy, and then you use AI as an assistant to kind of work with, and you can get creative for sure. But
totally, it opens up some crazy avenues and all, you know, and all that. But it's just, I think it just like anything, it's just like if you become complacent with it, it's you know, it's going to take you over.
If you could work with any artist, living or past, who would it be and why?
Ooh. Dave Brubeck would have been one of them. You know, I just a huge fan of Dave. My former drum teacher, Tom Poitras, was a student of Joe Morello, and Joe's from Orange, New Jersey, and I you know, I played the drums for a while, and and like that was a long time ago. I am no longer a drummer by any stretch of the imagination, but it just, those records are phenomenal. Like just to go back and like be a part of those sessions and learn and watch those musicians, you know, just crank out an album in a day. You know, it's I would say I would definitely say like any of those old jazz guys, Miles, Dave Brubeck, John Coltrane, Ella Fitzgerald. I would love to see those sessions, but I'd also have loved to be, you know, David Byrne is on my bucket list to record.
David Byrne, okay.
David, you know, a huge Talking Heads fan, and just I just like his approach to music. Another bucket list guy, I'd really like to record Steve Smith and Vital Information. Like you know, Steve Smith was the drummer for Journey.
Yes.
Yeah, for those who don't know, but you know, he's a Berkeley grad, and he and Vinnie Colaiuta were in the same class. And you know, I mean, if you go and listen to like Steve's records that he did with Jean-Luc Ponty, I mean, they're mind bending. It's just like, oh my god, you know. And I mean, yeah, I like Steve would be awesome. I mean, right now, I mean, I have no, anybody that pays well and can, you know, that I can get along with in the studio, come give me a call.
Yeah.
You know,
there you go.
It's beggars can't be choosers these days, but yeah, I would say those guys. I like those doing jazz and fusion records. I just, you know, you just hit record, and you let them, and you let these world-class musicians, you just let them rip and just be, you're truly capturing the moment. Like it's, you know, you're not really, and they're really not about the digital trickery and, you know, the tomfoolery that Pro Tools and Logic and all those things and whatever DAW you're using can do. It's like they take pride that they have been studying music since they were children and constantly learning and constantly honing their craft and their instrument and just becoming better and better and better musicians as they progress through life. And I appreciate that. And it's just like, you know, I just finished doing Cindy Blackman Santana's new album. They're her jazz rock fusion records, and man, they just you know, I'm hitting record as they're walking in, and they just let it rip, man. It's
that's cool.
Awesome experience. Yeah.
It makes it easy. Nice and smooth.
It makes it real easy.
What's an album or an artist that you remember just taking the headphones and putting them on and listening to and just being like, holy shit, you know, it's just, my mind is bending from this. I just heard something and panned to the left of my headphone, and I never heard that the third time I listened to it. And what's that song that kind of just stood out? You're like, holy crap, this is just
I wouldn't say
produced
song,
well,
I'd
mixed
say
well.
album.
Yeah,
I've
album.
said this,
Sure.
I've said this before. I think my catalyst album, the album that was my catalyst, being like, I really want to go down the recording rabbit hole. And I was young. Was the band Yes, and it was their album Union. That's what I was like, what in God's name is this? And I listened to that record all the time as a kid and growing up, and I still listen to it. And like I popped it on a couple months ago, and I still hear little nuances, and it's crazy. And that band was so good. I mean, just like mind-bogglingly good. And that Union record had all of them on there. Like, I think Trevor Horn had something to do with it. I know he did the Owner of a Lonely Broken Heart, but I think he was producing that record. And the mixes are phenomenal, and the musicianship is just mind-boggling. And just the frequencies speak to me, and it's just like, and when the frequencies of an album or a song speak to me, I tune everything else out, and I just let my mind wander, and it's something, a lot of it gives me goosebumps, and and music's all about emotion and just conveying emotion. And I think that album did an incredible job with it. And it's like, there's no vibrato on those vocals, on any of those Yes vocals. You listen, there's no vibrato. It's insane. It's just like,
I never really noticed that before.
Right. And it's just like, I never noticed it until somebody pointed it out to me. I was like, what are you talking about? And I go back and I'm like, oh my God, and just like how these guys are playing such complex things, but they're playing with each other, and they're playing for the music, not for themselves. And that's
right.
And knowing when not to play, even though they're playing a lot of stuff. And that's the big thing too, like, especially in jazz and everything. It's like, and any music for that matter, it's knowing when not to play, like not to
overplay. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, and unfortunately we're in the day and age of how fast can you play it, and can you shred, and like, cool, you got chops, but
right.
But it's like, can you play with a band?
Is there a dream project or genre that you haven't touched yet, but you would love to?
Jeff Ochiltree is a dear friend of mine, and Jeff is like the original drum tech. And for a while, we wanted to do, my manager John Weston and I, we wanted to do a whole series about Jeff, but it being all the drummers that he teched for. So Jeff started out, his first job and the first drum tech position, really, that we know of, and it's pretty much well documented that he was Jeff tech for Mahavishnu Orchestra and Billy Cobham. And right. Not a bad first gig. And I think, and what we wanted to do was like to bring Billy in with a band, and then he's, Vinnie Colaiuta, Steve Smith, Cindy Blackman Santana, like, Mark Craney, but Mark's no longer around, but like drummers of that caliber that he worked with, like John Wackerman and all the way, and Chad Wackerman and Brooks Wackerman, the Wackerman brothers, like, we wanted to do the project where we still might do it, but where it was based on all the drummers that Jeff worked with, and they would bring in their bands and their music, and we would record it, and we would document like how Jeff interacts with like all these drummers and the bands, and how important it is to, like, it goes back to maintaining your instrument, and the unsung heroes who work on these instruments that people don't know about, that keep these things going, because you don't take care of your instrument, you're not gonna be able to play, that's like a project like that. I don't have like, I want to work with this band so badly, and I was I don't think in those terms. I think in like I think more of like an idea of something like that, like Can I get like 4 drummers in the room with just a badass band backing them up and doing some wild, crazy stuff? That's, I'm not into making 3.5 minute long songs, although I do it to pay the bills. But like for me, like I'm actually just finishing up a project called Purple Sympty. And that's Society of Motion Picture Television Engineers, for those who don't know what SMPTE means. And it's the time code that's used to lock up all the various tape machines and all that. And it's a project that I actually have John Wackerman on. And I've got all these phenomenal musicians from Vegas and and a band like Richard Bellegarde from Blue Man Group. He's on it. I've got my friend Mike Suter. The bass player is Craig Martini. Craig plays with Paul Gilbert, Phil Collin, Satriani, like, those guys, Bill Zappia on keys. And then I had also a couple other like producers, like my friend Rue, who worked at the Clubhouse. He helped me out. And it's like we took a 3.5 minute long song that my friend Mike Daly originally wrote, and I turned it into this 14-minute monster. It just, it's gonna go. I'm actually gonna be doing the Atmos mixes for it in October, at the end of October at the Hideout in Las Vegas. I'm just finishing up the mixes. It'll be done in a couple weeks. Like stuff like that, like real experimental. It's not your average, we're just going to sit down and listen for, it's not your average pop song, right? And there's nothing wrong with all that. It's just like those real creative, exploratory type things that's what I like to do.
So for the Atmos recordings, how can you play the Atmos recordings? I'm totally ignorant to that. Is that just where you put a surround sound system in?
You need an Atmos. That's how it's like most people are listening to on their earbuds. Like they have the binaural headphones, and it's like, the Apple, the AirPods you can listen in binaural. But if you're doing Atmos, you got to have all the speakers and all the channels, and it's, there's not too many people who have an Atmos setup in their living room, So, and that's the accessibility. I mean, the closest thing you'll have to it is your car. This is going to be my first mix in Atmos, so it's like, I'm doing my due diligence, and the guy who works with me, Tristan Harden, at the Hideout, he did all of Kevin Churko's all of his albums in Atmos. I think he did over 600 songs and stuff. So I'm going out there and like, we're going to mix it together. And like, I have to prepare all the stems and everything like that.
Sure.
Like, right. Because it's, it's a whole different thing. Like, you got to be at -18 for, LUFS, I guess, full loudness units, full scale. So it can, when you funnel it down to binaural, you're not just crushing the tube bus. It's it's a whole different like thing. The rules you have to follow. Otherwise, it's just gonna be like, just like grinding at you. So for me, it's a new learning experience, and like you go to NAMM and you see the demonstrations, and it's. A lot of it online, Atmos. But I have never gotten a request to do anything in Atmos, not yet. And I think it's awesome. Like more speakers.
I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, it's just and just different approaches, especially for TV and film. I mean, it's amazing when you go into one of those, go into those theaters, and it's just you're totally immersed into it. It's just having the system and being able to sit in a calibrated room and or a calibrated system to listen to it properly. And they're not, it's not quite ready at that point for commercial consumers, but it's getting there. Sony's coming out with their 360 speaker. I mean, they came out with it. I don't know too much about it, but there are companies that are working on it for the consuming level. And it's just there are people who got into the Atmos like early in the game who are really good at it, but it's also too, it's like there are a lot of people that have gotten into it, and there's a lot of garbage out there too. There's like a lot, Yeah. And you just have to be aware of it. I mean, who knows, man? It's like, this is going to be my first one coming up. Mine could be absolute shit, but like I said, I'm surrounding myself with people who are better than me. And,
Right.
the whole idea is to avoid it, because at the end of the day, my name's on the line and their names are on the line too. So,
Sure.
it's an interesting technology, and I'm all for seeing what it's all about and giving its fair shake and getting my head around it.
Amazing. So I want to talk about it, and I thought about this too before we jumped on. I was very intrigued by just some of the footage that I saw. That I think you had a video or something online of Imagine Dragons and how their recording of their album went, and the experience in working with the band. And tell me a little bit about that. Were there songs that were created? Did you see songs from where it was just a verse created and then they built on it and you saw the whole thing develop and morph into what it is now? I mean,
no, so Night Visions, that was their first, that was their freshman record on Interscope.
Yep.
It was just me and the band in the room, but they did have a producer, Alex the Kid, who produced Radioactive, Demons, and I think a couple other tunes. So that was pretty much all done in LA with Alex and his team. And
I see.
And it was brought to the studio. I recorded all the guitars on it for Radioactive. We did the bass. I think we did drum overdubs. I mean, I only spent like a day on it. But what happens with them is they'll write in Logic and Ableton and everything like that. In fact, I did that session in Logic. They were begging me to do it in Logic. I was like, all right. Like the week before, I'm sitting there with like a bottle of Jack Daniels, being like, "How the fuck am I learn Logic?
How am I going to learn this in like 2 days?"
And be as fluent and proficient as I am in Pro Tools. And I ended up, I did was I ended up cutting all the parts in Pro Tools and then switching over, flying everything in, because I could fly in Pro Tools, and I thought. The editing capabilities, at least this was 2012, 10, 11, somewhere in there. Where I didn't think the editing capabilities of Logic, I think Pro Tools smoked it at that point, I don't know now, and I'm not knocking Logic by any stretch of the imagination. Sure. It's a phenomenal tool to use for arrangements, and like it smokes Pro Tools in the MIDI department and everything like that. And Ableton and all that, but that was their process, and then they would bring it in, and then they would have these, they would have at least the somewhat of the blueprint, and then we would just sit there and just start doing overdubs and throwing things together. And it was never, I never had the four of them in the room, maybe once or no. For the EP that we did that had It's Time on it, the whole band was in the room. So they were that, and that's when when Brittany Tolman was in the band, and then Andrew was in the band as well. Andrew's now drumming back in the band. Daniel Platzman left the drumming position, but it was band in a room type situation. Brendan Darner was producing that, and they had their demos and stuff like that. But we track the band live, and you can hear those songs, and you can hear how that band developed from being like big, like a band in a room, like Independence, to like these just huge productions starting huge, like epic productions, movies, soundtrack productions and everything like that. And it started with the Night Visions record, really, because it was just like they had all this stuff that they wanted, like they had the ideas done in in their system, in their DAWs, and then they brought it in. Whereas the Continued Silence, that was the name of the EP, where they came in, it was tracking the band, everybody together at once.
That must have been the footage I saw. Yeah, because I remember seeing the whole band in.
Yeah, that was definitely from the Continued Silence EP. Yeah, where that's where it all started.
Man, I would love to have a huge production, just massive scale, epic production on a song. Just that's my bucket list, man.
They're fun, dude. Well, you and I started working together. Let's do it, Jim. Let's do it.
Yeah, dude. So amazing speaking with you, Mark. What's the best way that people could get in touch with you? They want to
I
reach you.
use social media, Mark Everton Gray, website, Mark Everton Gray. I think it's markevertongraynoise.com. Yeah, man, I always, I try and answer every email and, every text coming at me, that I possibly can. Cause you never know who you're going to talk to. And like, you could be talking to the next big thing and everything like that. And people ask me questions all the time. And, I'm more than happy to talk shop. It's like, I'm not a master engineer by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just a guy that's been very fortunate whom I've worked with, and I've worked my ass off, and I've dedicated my life to making records. And it's just like been in the biggest studios in the world and the littlest studios in the world with the biggest names in the world to the no names of the world. And it's just, I go big or go home. It doesn't matter who it is. I treat everybody like they're Celine Dion or Elton John or Michael Jackson. You have to, and it's just like, and vibe is everything. If you don't have vibe, call it a day and go get some vibe. And it's all about your arrangement. Work on your arrangements, because everything else will just fall right into place.
I love that mentality of treating everybody like Elton John or Celine Dion, and having that relationship with people and just connecting on a vibe level. That's the coolest thing ever. So amazing speaking with you, Mark.
Jim,
thanks so much for hopping on. I'm so glad we connected last summer, and let's do this again soon.
You got it, brother. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Jim. Bye.